Salufalava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suiswiki. Coming up,
We just want the government to support all the business that's been affected.
Vanuatu businesses want to get back on track. Also, how a social tradition in the Northern Marianas could be doing more harm than good. And
this year we've got one eye on 2027 with our selections, and it's very important that we give every opportunity to players.
Fiji, Tonga and Samoa rugby look ahead to the next World Cup. More than a dozen buildings still need to be demolished in the central business district of Vanuatu's capital, Port Vila, which has been cordoned off since the 7.3 magnitude quake in December. The chairperson of the Vanuatu Chamber of Commerce, Antoine Baudier, says so far only one building has been demolished, with 13 to 14 still to go. Koroi Hawkins reports.
Antoine Baudier says there are a lot of frustrated business owners whose buildings are not damaged but who remain out of bounds because of their proximity to dangerous structures.
So far, we had one building demolished, which is Andrea de la Casa. And today, we still got another couple that needs to be demolished. But we do understand that they are currently waiting for specialized equipment to come out of New Zealand. And that's the reason why they haven't started.
He says they've conducted a door-to-door survey of all businesses located in the red zone and found 900 employees directly impacted. He says they're working on providing some relief assistance to workers and their families.
We have been working with the Ministries of Finance, with the director, with Tony, and we've been working on a stimulus package to assist those workers that have lost their jobs, find ways and means financially, like we've done for the COVID-19.
The owner of a business located in the cordoned-off district says she wants the incoming government to prioritise reopening downtown Port Vila. Fiona Tarisinea Mahit has temporarily relocated her tour operator business to Saralana Park alongside several others who aren't allowed to access their buildings in the red zone. She says they've seen a sharp decline in business without the foot traffic they were accustomed to at their location near the Vila seafront.
We just want the government to support all the business that's been affected in this earthquake last year, and our location would be the first thing that we want them to help us to reopen.
Another business owner in the quake-stricken capital says they're eagerly awaiting the formation of a new government so work to get the country back on track can properly begin. The Electoral Commission says it will declare the official results of the national poll overnight, but 5 political parties have already signalled their intention to form a coalition government. Number 1 cafe owner, Ivan Oswald, is operating from a temporary location also at Saralana Park and keen to get back onto his premises in the cordoned-off CBD.
Well, obviously, we really want good leadership. Politics here is in game. I don't really know all about it, but we just want good leadership. We want people to think about the people, look after all the man place, help all the mamas, and try to assist the small businesses to set up and run again, and develop the country to look after education and schools that are really lacking in this country.
Antoine Baudier says much of the Port Vila seafront, where there aren't any buildings, is safe, but authorities are not likely to reopen it until most of the condemned buildings, some of which are leaning dangerously, are demolished. Meanwhile, tremors continue to be felt in the capital, with the epicenter of a 5.3 magnitude quake on Sunday, just 21 kilometers from the CBD.
The Northern Marianas has passed a new law that would regulate the sale of a powdery substance made from crushed coral, used for betel nut chewing, known as lime. Health advocates say betel nut chewing with lime is linked to oral cancer, dental problems and potential addiction. I spoke with our CNMI correspondent Mark Rabago and began by asking him about the public's reaction to the new law.
Well, for most people in the community, it's been a positive response. They welcome this new law as espoused by Dr. Lily Molden of the Commonwealth Health Center. She's a health advocate. She welcomes the new legislation because a critical component in betel nut chewing is afok, cloud, or witch. I mean, they call it um, Chamorro in Carolinian. She said this law represents an important step toward addressing public health concerns associated with betel nut chewing. She also said that the betel nut chewing is linked to significant health risks, including oral cancer, dental problems, and potential addiction. Muldoon said regulating Lyme demonstrates the CNMI government's proactive approach to protecting the community.
Would you say that the oral cancer rates has worsened in recent times?
I don't have the stats in front of me, but yeah, there's been a lot of people dying because of oral cancer, and it's been linked to tobacco use, especially in betel nut chewing. Because here in the islands, they chew the betel nut together with the tobacco itself, and including lime.
What effects does chewing lime with betel nuts have on an individual?
I don't really know, but one of the reasons they raise this concern in regulating lime is they don't know how they make this product. Originally, it's made from crushed coral. The coral is gathered from the sea, and then they make it into a paste, powdery substance after they dry it out, and then it becomes lime. But because of there's suspicion that other companies who make this lime use other substances like dog and cat bones or other foreign substances that could not be edible. I don't know what the agency will be regulating lime and eating it, but at least there's a law now prohibiting sale of lime without regulation.
You've pointed out that lime is mostly made out of crushed coral. What impacts does that have on the environment?
Good question. One of the components of this law is actually trying to save the CNMI coral, perhaps by trying to limit companies who harvest these corals for making lime.
And Mark, what charges will people face if they break this new law?
So, okay, the law states any person who violates the provision upon first conviction will be fined not more than $500 and imprisoned not more than 8 days. A second offense, a person will be fined $2,000 and imprisoned for more than a year.
What cultural significance does betel nut chewing have in the Mariana Islands?
It's part of the tradition. It's part of the tradition of the Pacific Islands. Even in the Philippines, we have a tradition of chewing betel nut. It's one way of relaxing, one way of, probably a communal group setting. You relax using that. And it's a way of probably just smoking tobacco. It's part of the culture.
The Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, James Marape, has shored up his political support by making the man who attempted to remove him last year in votes of no confidence a member of his cabinet. Rainbow Baita had been a senior member of the Marape government before switching sides last year. Now, as our PNG correspondent Scott Whitey told Don Wiseman, Mr. Baita is back in the Marape cabinet.
He's moved over the government immediately after the vote of no confidence attempt, and now he's being appointed, as of yesterday, appointed minister assisting the Prime Minister with the Menyamia MP, Solon Loifa, as his deputy, the Vice Minister assisting the Prime Minister. It represents, I think, a shoring up of numbers within the Marape Rosso ranks, and it puts to rest this question about any future vote of no confidence in the next parliament sitting, because the risk is always, there in PNG politics.
Yes, and Parliament sits from next month. It's got a lot on its plate. It's a very big year for PNG, so they'll be very keen for there not to be time lost to votes of no confidence.
Yes, some very, very big issues like the law and order that needs to be addressed, the state of the economy. So basically the government, Prime Minister James Marape, just doesn't want to deal with the votes of no confidence or any risk of it. So he's basically taken the person who was up against him as alternative Prime Minister, put him in just very close to him as Minister assisting the Prime Minister, and The cabinet numbers now are at 39, so it's a fairly large number for a cabinet with vice ministers included.
Yes, now, Rainbow Paita, of course, had a very senior rank in the Marape government earlier before he switched sides amid the possibility that he might become the Prime Minister. A minister assisting the Prime Minister is a fairly lowly rank, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a fairly lowly rank. But in this case, I think the Prime Minister wants to keep him very close, both as a strategic move and just to manage the expectations of cabinet members, because there was internally a lot of strife within cabinet members who disagreed with Rainbow Paita, and also bringing Rainbow Paita back as the alternative Prime Minister and then bringing him back into the fold as well is bound to cause some ripples.
What about within the opposition now? They were scrambling around over the last 18 months to find someone who might be their new Prime Minister, the opposition leader himself. He doesn't want it. The governor of East Sepik, Alan Bird, he was a candidate at one point, but he was going out of his way to say he didn't expect it and he didn't want it. So where does it leave the opposition now?
It leaves the opposition in a fairly weaker state than before, because Rainbow Paita, when he moved, he took over a fairly large number of members over. I think from where I'm standing, the difficulty has always been for the opposition around the charisma of the leaders that have been are in the opposition. So basically the inability of the characters there to muster the numbers and bring people together under a singular purpose to take over government. So that has been their biggest difficulties. The personalities, one, and then the ability to muster the numbers, get them together, and then go into the floor of Parliament.
The Flying Fijians and the Ikalitahi have one thing in common this year, the 2027 Rugby World Cup in Australia. But while the Fijians are putting in the work, their neighbours Tonga and Samoa will be fighting to qualify for a spot. Eliasa Tora has more.
The Flying Fijians automatically qualified for the 2027 World Cup when they finished as a top 8 team in France during the 2023 event. Head coach Mick Byrne says player selection is a critical part, adding that 2024 was a rushed year for him, taking over the Flying Fijians head coach job straight after the Super Rugby competition with the Fijian Drua.
I made the comment that we would use 2024 as a season to just get on and play great rugby and look at the existing squad and work with that. This year we've got one eye on 2027 with our selections, and it's very important that we give every opportunity to players that we think will be there in 2027 an opportunity to play test matches.
Byrne is keen to explore all players who might be available, including former current out of the All Blacks selection trio Hoskin Sotutu, Peter Gus Soakula and George Bauer, who will all be eligible for Fiji this year if they are not reselected for the All Blacks.
It's important that we reach out and find out whether they're interested in doing that. And we'll be doing that as early as probably next week. We'll be reaching out and making contact. Once they've indicated that they are prepared to pursue that, well, then we'll keep an eye on them. We'll put them in our selection profiles. And if their form warrants selection into our national team, well, then we'll be welcoming them with open arms.
Important also for Byrne is securing test matches so that his players can have game time, especially against Tier 1 teams. He says a total of 25 test matches are likely for them between now and the 2027 Rugby World Cup kickoff, starting off with a test against the Wallabies in Sydney on July 6, with another 8 on the horizon for 2025.
We'll probably have 3 games in November. We'll have our 2, Australia and Scotland. We'll have our P&C games, which will probably end up being 4 games there. And then, we'll probably have another 3. So we could end up with 9 test matches this year.
Meanwhile, Tonga Rugby is also getting things into perspective, with the World Cup qualifiers happening during the Pacific Nations Cup Series this year. Chief Executive Officer Isaiah Aholele says top priority is finishing in the top 3 at the PNC and qualifying for 2027.
2025, the most important thing for right now for the Ikalitahi is to qualify for the World Cup. So that is pretty much what we were targeting for 2025. So everything that we are planning is geared towards qualifying for for the World Cup in 2027.
Aholele says they are also focused on securing the best players available, including former All Black halfback Falau Fakatava, who will play for the Highlanders in the Super Rugby Pacific competition.
Well, for the players, obviously, we want the best players available at the moment. We've seen last year, I think, where many of the top players weren't available. But I'm pretty positive and sure that they have reached out to as many top players that can be available for Tonga.
Tonga will be fighting against Samoa, Canada and the USA for the top 3 spots at the PNC, with the 4th team also having the opportunity of qualifying through a repechage playoff.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā soifua.